Dear Mr. Stu, I have seen a lot of your videos and notice you talk a lot about children's brains. Yes, I do. I love talking about kids' brains. Again, I'm here to help adults understand kids. And a lot of times we think that kids are just little adults and they have all the same stuff as adults. They just haven't grown up as physically large as adults. That's not true. It's important to understand kids' brains. So I'm glad that you noticed that trend. One thing I see you talk about a lot is the prefrontal cortex and how it's not quote unquote online in kids. I know that can cause some frustrating difficulties for us as parents and for them as children. I was wondering if my story has anything to do with the prefrontal cortex. Wow, you put a lot of things together there. Let's see what this is. The other day, while we were in an elevator with a few strangers, my child loudly commented on someone's appearance in a way that was quite embarrassing for me. Okay. I'm concerned about how to address this with them and help them understand the importance of being considerate. How can I approach this situation to teach them about kindness and awareness in social settings? Wow. It is amazing to me that you put all those pieces together, and yes, it has everything to do with the prefrontal cortex. For those of you who haven't seen my videos where I talk about kids' brains, the prefrontal cortex is a part of the brain right behind the forehead, and it's responsible for what are called executive functions. Time management, planning ahead, thinking through all of the consequences that could happen from a certain situation, being able to put together thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and nuances in language are all controlled in the prefrontal cortex. And that part of the brain is not connected until around age 12. And it doesn't fully connect until around age 25. And then it never stops developing unless you have a disorder until you are dead. So, yes, this nuances in language piece, it has everything to do with the prefrontal cortex. Let me break it down for you. This is one that I get asked a lot, and people don't know that they're going to ask me this question, but they tell me things like, my child said something hateful, or my child said something rude, and they're really asking, why in the world would they do that? I didn't raise them that way. And that's kind of what you're saying here, but you've put some of these pieces together. Yes, everything to do with the prefrontal cortex and those nuances in language. And I say that because sometimes kids say things that as adults we look at and we think, oh goodness, that was so rude or that was so disrespectful. And really the child is being very genuine, or they're being very honest, or they are just exploring their world and they're not trying to be rude or mean, or they don't really have a feeling about what they're saying. They are being so genuine in their conversation. I'll give you an example. There's times where especially very young kids will come in my office and they'll go, Mr. Stu, you're bald. And if it's a first session, then a parent is in there with them and their parent will say, oh, don't say that. And I look back at them and say, I am bald. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm bald, especially if that's coming out of a 5-year-old's mouth. A 5-year-old is allowed to say, Mr. Stu, you're bald. Now, they didn't go on to say, Mr. Stu, you're bald, that's stupid, you're ugly. But as adults, that's kind of what we put onto the kids, because we know that as adults, if we were going to say that to someone, if we were going to be like, you are bald, we know that the underlying context of that is you look bad. To a child, they're really not meaning that. Those nuances that happen in the prefrontal cortex are not happening for young children especially. So when they say something like, you're bald, that's all they mean by it. They just mean you're bald. I don't remember this happening, but my parents tell me that when I was very, very young, we went out to a restaurant and our waiter had missing teeth, had a lot of missing teeth, very few teeth left. They took our order and I looked and they said, anything else? And I looked up and I said, why are your teeth like that? And they said that they wanted to just melt into the ground and die right there. That they could not believe that I had just said that. But they could also understand, I didn't mean anything by it. I was asking a genuine question. Why are your teeth like that? The waiter handled it perfectly from what they tell me. She said, well, it's actually because I smoke a whole lot, and this is one of the reasons that you should not smoke, honey. So that's why some of my teeth are gone. Does that make sense? She handled it like a champ. She could tell I was really asking. To a little kid, those questions are important. They're really asking, hey, don't think that that's how I want my teeth to end up. So I was just wondering, why are your teeth like that? That's really what they're asking. They're asking out of some anxiety. Or when they see me and they see that I'm bald, they say, Mr. Stu, you're bald. I actually just had a client yesterday say, Mr. Stu, why are you bald? And I said, well, it's because my hair fell out. That's what happens sometimes when you get older. And they said, my hair has not fallen out yet. And I said, no, it hasn't. And then we went right on and we played. They were being so genuine in their questions. Just because a child says something that an adult would not be allowed to say, or that an adult knows maybe you don't say, doesn't mean that they were wrong for saying it. There was another time I was on a cruise and I was on an elevator with a young family, a family who had very young children, and some older people, and one of the older ladies had a skin condition that caused her skin to show spots. And the child looked up and said, why is your face like that? And you could tell the mom just died and just went like this, like, please let the elevator stop. Let the elevator doors open. I am about to crawl out of my skin. Please get me out of here. And the woman looked back at the child and she said, I'm different, but I'm beautiful, just like you. She could understand that question was coming from a genuine place, and that child didn't mean anything hurtful or hateful by it. They really were just exploring their world. They're just trying to figure out what is going on in this wild, wild world of ours. Give them the benefit of that doubt. So if your child said something that you saw as rude or embarrassing, take a step back and see, did they really say something that was rude? Yes, it was embarrassing, so I'm not taking that from you. But did they really say something that was rude? Or were they just exploring their world and what they said really is what they meant? There was no underlying hate. There was no underlying, you're weird, you're bad. Just they really were exploring their world and figuring it out. If that's the case, you can give them an honest and genuine answer. Mr. Stu, why are you bald? Well, as I got older, my hair fell out. And that happens to all the guys in my family. Our hair just falls out. It happens sometimes. That's it. That's my answer. If you can come up with those very genuine answers to children's very genuine questions, it will help them to see that it's not that people are bad or people are weird and different. Yes, people are all different, but different doesn't mean weird. They can start to see all that, and then they can understand their world a little bit better. So understand that authenticity in kids, and then you can have a conversation with them after that situation to talk with them about, hey, if somebody looked at you and said, why is your face like that? How would you feel about that? And let them talk with you and say, you know what? Maybe I would feel kind of strange if somebody just asked me, why is my face like that? Then that might make me feel kind of uncomfortable. So I don't want other people to feel uncomfortable. And do you see, they can come to that conclusion on their own. But if you just look at them and you say, why would you say that? Don't you ever say that? Don't you say that in front of, and they're just being genuine. What that tells them is that there's some things that I'm not allowed to talk about. And we don't want kids to feel that way. We want kids to know that they can come to us with anything that's genuinely on their minds and on their hearts. So rather than responding out of anger just because you felt uncomfortable, you can respond with genuineness and then have a conversation with them later about how to understand language a little bit better and how to understand how our words cause other people to feel if we use the wrong words. And that develops some of those executive functions in a child's brain. And once those are developing, then that part of the brain is coming online more and more and more, and you'll see them start to get better at it. Remember, kids are doing a lot of things, including seeing a lot of things for the very first time. If it's the first time they've seen something, don't expect them to get it right. They're going to get it wrong at first. Give them some grace, offer them a genuine response, and then talk with them about how their words can cause other people to feel. If you'll do that, then you'll be setting them up for success, and you'll be building a stronger relationship with them as they develop more and more of those skills.